What engineering management is all about. And okay, if we go back to the topic, it says the path of the engineering manager, and it's an intersection of technology, business, and leadership. So what I want to talk about today is, are two aspects of the whole thing. So one is we're going to talk about engineering management and what it's all about. And we'll tackle three aspects that are of key importance of getting it right. So it's people, engineering, and business, and I'll dive into that a little bit later. And on the other side, like the second aspect, I'm going to try telling you how my path looked like, because it's a little bit different when you do it in different, today than a couple of years back or a couple of decades back when I started. So, yeah. The three key components of what engineering management is all about are people, engineering, and business. So, and they're ordered by importance. And I know sometimes it may sound as a pitch or a sales pitch, but it's really all about the people. Now, yeah, this sounded like a pitch, so it's not really all about the people, but people are the most important part of the work that an engineering manager does. And there are a lot of aspects here to it that we should cover. And first, let's focus on the, first, let's focus on the important stuff. So actually, let's do it the other way around. Let's focus on the least important stuff, but critical. So we're going to start with the business. Then we're going to go to engineering, and then we're going to come back to people. And I'll tell you why. Business is the most critical component, but it's a thing that you learn. So it's not something that you can survive without. You have to be familiar with the business acumen and several aspects of it, but that's something you can easily learn. So what are those? First is the financial acumen. So if you're going to be in engineering management, you have to understand the financial acumen. I can walk you through it, but in the interest of time and in the interest of focusing on the important stuff, there's a lot of this content available around. There's, universities, there are courses, you can Google it. So the fundamental principles of finance acumen, cover end-to-end, from financial statements, managing cash flows, setting budgets, and so on and so forth. So that's one thing. The second thing is the market analysis. So if you're going to understand the business, you have to understand the market. And this includes also a lot of things that you can read about and train yourself about, okay? So from researching to analyzing market trends, identifying what are the customer needs on the markets that you want to operate on, and so on and so forth. So it's, you need to analyze the competition that's operating on the market, which is equally important. And there are a lot of, aspects, but you really need to understand the market. The next thing is strategic planning. So why is this important in business? You have to really know what is it that you need to be successful in the business. And now I'm talking resources, and it's a deliberate thing why it's separate from the people, because in the business that we're in, key resources are people. But in all the books and in all the understandings, we have to kind of walk away from treating people as just resources. So I'm going to talk about that in the people part, because I think it's crucially important on how we approach this. But now I'm referring to resources that's, that comprise all the aspects of strategic planning, and it's crucially important. You have to be able to forecast, and you have to be able to identify the opportunities, and those will kind of let you rise the business. So strategic planning is more about zooming out. So looking at the big picture and seeing where you want to go, with the business. And another aspect is that's important in the business part of the engineering management work is the customer service. And regardless if you're in the product development business or in the services business, it's really important to understand the needs of the customers, their preferences, what are they anticipating, what do they need, and how it can be provided in a timely manner, how we can build effective solutions to solve their problems, and so on and so forth. But the customer service component is key to business. I'm not going to go any deeper into this. I'd like to move on because, as I said at the beginning, the business part is critical, but it's something you can learn. And there are a lot of books available about it. And then, you know, there are a lot of courses, and it's in the curricula for many management programs at the universities and so on and so forth. So, you know, information is out there, and you can reach to it easily. All right, so the engineering in engineering management. Now, we're going to talk about here on why this is important and how it is important. So, and I'm going to throw one challenge that I think you know, it's important for the audience to realize. So the key about, and there are two aspects again. So engineering in engineering management is the essence, but it's not always about the essence. You know, we have to have the essence. So we have to have the understanding of technology. You have to have the understanding of the engineering domain, understanding of science, depending on what you want to do and what are you doing. So if you're in, you know, in a company or on a project that's delivering certain solution, you have to understand the technology that's behind it. You have to understand the business domain, the engineering. You have to understand it all, but really understand it, you know. And to be able to understand it, there are different ways to get to it. So, you know, I'll map it later. You can go through the university, you can go through different educational processes and so on and so forth. But what it's really crucial is the critical thinking mindset and the urge to understand how things work under the hood or you know, deep inside, so that you can really use that information to help solve problems. Because if you, again, zoom out a little bit and you map engineering against technology and against, you know, what engineering is all about, it's about solving problems and mapping to the business and to the people. It's solving problems that people have in the way of improving lives, improving a lot of things around us. So really understanding is the key. I'm going to move on forward now and come back to the people. And I mentioned earlier that people are the most important component. And also one of the hardest part of it all. And this is why I want to spend the most time of this presentation on this part. Now, on this slide, I've emphasized all the key skill sets or skills that you need to, that one needs to develop, or in order to be able to be an effective leader, because the people component has a lot to do with leadership. So you have, and I'm going to read through them just to make a point on each of them. So communication skills are crucially important, and you'll hear me say crucially many times, so don't stress about it. You know, it's not all really crucial, but I'm using the term to make, you know, to emphasize on the important stuff. So communication skills are important, and how do you develop those? Well, there are a lot of ways to do it, but what it's all about is being able to pass the message, to articulate your vision, to you know, communicate the goals set for the team that you work with clearly, to be able to listen actively to what others are saying, and to be able to provide constructive feedback. So communication skills are very important. Now, the next thing is problem solving, and I'm going one by one here. So critical thinking, identifying root causes, and developing creative solutions to you know, simple as well as complex problems are all in ingredients or all comprise the problem solving component. The next skill is decision making. So if you're going to be at all involved in leadership, you have to be able to make decisions, and decisions need to be made timely. Decisions need to be informed. So this means you have to have, or it's good to have a lot of data, and this will be the basics or the essence on which you'll base your decisions, which I think is and I'm using the term crucial again, but crucially important. So because decision making without the data and without them being timely and informal can sometimes be misleading, or you can make a decision that's too soon or too late, and there are a lot of risks associated with it. So again, critical component. Emotional intelligence. So this a lot of books or a lot of training sessions or curricula defined it from different angles, and I thought this would be a simple one, but it's actually not. So this actually refers to the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, and be able to understand emotions of others. So this is one skill that it's important to be developed. And one of the things that we often forget is that we need to ask help if we need to develop certain skills. So, and I'll map this to the story I'll tell you later. Most of the engineering managers I've met have transited from engineering to management, and all this soft or people skills, I put soft in parentheses because I don't think they're soft. But anyway, all those skills are not something that we pay attention to in this transition, and then we operate on the assumption that we should know it all, and if we're technically capable and that we'll be able to figure out everything else. Sometimes yes, but it's also okay to ask for help. Adaptability. So we call this, you have to be able to adapt to different situations, and you should be able to, because being a leader in engineering management field, you'll be often thrown in the unknown. So you'll be in a position you've never been before, and you should be able to shift priorities, adapt to new challenges, pick it up quickly to be able to learn. So should be open and have the willingness to learn and stay flexible, because it's very important to, through flexibility, continuously develop the capacity to pivot if you need to have. So necessity is going to come, and you'll have to dodge quite often. The time management component is equally important, but a lot of people that know me will say that I should not talk about time management because there's a lot I need to improve there. But it's important for being a leader in the engineering management field. So this is why it's here. Now, as I mentioned, these are the skills, and it's if you go and Google it, you'll pick up these and probably some more of those, and they're all legit. But what it ends down to and what it boils down to are two very important aspects of the people component in engineering management. The first is you have to empower people. So if you are an engineering manager or an engineering lead or a leader in this field, what you really need to do is empower people, and there are three essential components of empowering people. The first one is clarity. So you have to be able to share the vision with the team and be clear about it so that they all know what you're talking about. The second one is support. So you have to support your people, you have to enable, coach, mentor, help. So you're there for them, okay? And the third thing is give them autonomy, because you cannot empower people if you tell them how to do things. You have to give them the end goal, the target, and let them be, let them go, let them work, and be there to support them. So these are the three key components that you need to use, or that I think you should use if you're going to be an engineer in engineering management. On the other hand, there's the management component, right? So you have to manage things. So you don't manage people, you have to manage things. And there are a lot of things you need to manage around people. So, you know, if you're going to select, you know, your team, you need to manage the interviewing process. You know, all the steps are secured, all the feedback is provided on time, and so on and so forth. You need to, you know, manage the onboarding process. You want to, you know, pass the key information to each person joining your team, regardless if it's, you know, company onboarding, project onboarding, and so on and so forth. Then you need to do, you know, manage the engagement process. Do you delegate tasks? How do you do that? And so on and so forth. So development, and to make sure that you manage the process of, you know, developing people's skills. So trainings, curricula, online courses, whatever it may be. You need to manage the performance. You know, you need to set KPIs, track them, you know, provide feedback, but you need to manage that process. And also the offboarding. You know, people are going to switch projects, they're going to go in and out, and you need to also properly manage that process as well. So to zoom out, bottom line is you manage things, you empower people. So this is the key important thing. Everything else you can Google, you can find in the books, and it's, you know, and you can use it. Okay, so we've covered the business, and I'm summing up now before I turn to the story. So business is critical. You cannot do without it. You need to understand the business acumen, but there are books about it. You can learn, you can Google, information is out there. Just do it. The second thing is engineering. Now, the key thing that goes with engineering is the delivery, because it's not about just making the right stuff or creating the product or delivering the service or whatever the service may be. It's crucially important how you do it. And these are the processes on the delivery. You know, so it's usually engineering and delivery. And we sometimes forget about it. And the third most important thing is the people. So, yeah. Okay, I can see there are questions, but please be patient. We'll tackle questions at the end, because I'm looking at the time and we're already 25 minutes and over. So there's a story I want to tell you on what my path or my journey looked like. And while I'm doing that, I'll stop sharing. And given the history today, I'm hoping I'll be able to come back easily to this. So let me just pause share. Okay. Now, this Zoom is funny. I mean, have I stopped sharing? Can host help out? As I cannot see. Yeah. Have I stopped sharing, or am I still sharing?
You're still sharing.
Okay, so how do I stop sharing? Stop video. Okay, maybe this is it. Stop video. Okay, is it? Have I stopped sharing?
No. You're still sharing.
Okay, so apologize for the white screen, because this is where the story goes. So, you know, I was hoping that you'll be able to see me better and to communicate to you guys better without the presentation occupying the major part of the screen. But then again, you know, we are where we are. So let me try this. It's the same. Okay, never mind.
You should have like a button stop sharing, stop share.
There's pause share, there's
annotate. No, it should not be pause, I believe. I believe it's
okay,
stop.
Fine.
Yeah.
Cool, good. And I have to start the video now, because stopping the video killed the camera.
Yeah,
cool.
That's it.
Oh, okay, now it's much better. I have a lot of apologies to do, because, you know, for not being so proficient with Zoom, but we've kind of been using Teams for quite some time, and you know, I know it's a lousy excuse, but yeah, I always need to have one, right? Okay, so how it all started with me and what my journey and my path looked like towards engineering management. it all started very early. So I'm going to cover, the part, there are kind of several parts of it. One is the period of school, so grad period, primary school, high school, and so on. Then the university, and then a couple of good choices and a couple of bad choices there. And then the work and how it all maps to what I just explained now as being on the, being the important components of engineering management. Okay, so, and I'm going to do a parallel because when I was in primary school and in high school, that's the period, for an example, primary school, it's, the 1980s. So what was key event in the world at that time, for an example, Perl got invented in 1987, programming language by Larry Wall. So that's an important event there. Microsoft launched Windows 3.0 in 1990. So this was, during my primary school, period. And Linux kernel got out by Linus Torvalds in 1990. So these are like the most important things that happened in the world of technology. And while I was in primary school, what I was doing at that time, I was using my Commodore 64 computer to play games. So, but this is how it started. You start to play games and you get hooked to it. And yeah, those games then had nothing to do with these games now, but it kind of, ignites the curiosity and it gets you hooked to computers, which is crucially important for at least it was for my career going forward. Then in high school, one of the key things that happened, although Windows 3.0 was still around and other versions of Windows came later, but the key thing happened. Java 1.0 was published by Sun Microsystems in 1991. So this was like the most important thing while I was in starting high school that happened. And the key event for me at that point in this context was that I applied for a course in Pascal in 1993. And on our informatics class at fourth year in high school, we got to be exposed to computers for the first time. Now, why am I telling you this? It's important on there are I'm sure most of you have heard the famous connecting the dots story on the Stanford commencement speech by Steve Jobs. So I'm kind of mapping against that. What are the key factors that kind of drive all of us on where or which path we're going to take in our careers? So moving forward into education, I went to the electrotechnical faculty on the university in Skopje. Then, first year, second year, then I decided to drop off because at that point, I figured that the educational system on the university was too much professor-centric. Go figure, right? And then I dropped in on the Math and Natural Sciences University to kind of continue there. And after a year, dropped out of there as well. And I decided I'm not gonna be, dealing with these universities because they suck. Sorry for the political incorrectness, right? But I started working and I ran as far away from technology, IT, programming, and everything. So I was a bartender, waiter. Then I got promoted to a position at that time called a marker. This is the guy that sits on the near to the bar and takes marks on all the bartenders are throwing over the counter. And it was pitched to me in a way that it requires diligence, attention to detail, and so on and so forth. It was an interesting pitch. But anyway, I did a lot of things connected to people, and it helped me building this, servant mindset, to be aware of, the service-oriented approach and how to serve people and their needs. I know it doesn't sound like it when you work as a waiter, but there are a lot of components there that make you face and interact with a lot of people. Then The next thing was moving to a totally different area into the international non-governmental community. And I did a lot of work there. But then again, how is this important to the previous story is that it gets you exposed to different cultures, different way of working, different, people that think in a different way, have different traditions, and you realize the diversity in the world. And because at that time, and this is important to mention, all the IT companies were just local. So there were no international IT companies to work for. And the only way to get exposed to international community was, of course, non-governmental. And that went on for years. And then I decided, for a couple of years, and then I decided to go back to software development. And the company that I joined was one of the first outsourcing companies in Macedonia at that time. And I was doing a migration project for a lawyer, client or a lawyer company. And the migration was Visual Basic 3 to Visual Basic 6 migration. So it was ages ago. And then a different company doing different VB6 and C++ projects and so on and so forth. So coming back to engineering. And next steps after that had a lot to do with, as you work in engineering, in any kind of engineering for that matter, and software development, and do a lot of coding, a lot of debugging, a lot of at a certain point you grasp seniority and skill set, and then you mentor younger colleagues, and then you lead small. I led smaller teams, and then teams grew bigger, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to bug you with the details on it there, but then having said all of this previously, the transition from an engineer towards somebody leading teams and manages processes around it was kind of natural. But in the manner of the story of connecting the dots and how that all boils together at the end, it was for me crucially important that I, at a certain point, did all this different stuff that made no sense to anybody, to my family, to my parents, to my brother and friends at that time. Even to me, I just knew I wanted to do that, and I had no idea why. But then, when came back to the engineering world, it all started to make sense. So it all kind of add up. It all added up. Now, there's one also important personal experience and story that I want to add to this, because I think it's also something that comes to you at a certain point in your career. And that is the fall. So I'll try not to disclose too many details about the people and the companies and the company that I was working at that point. But the long story short was that I was leading a large team of around almost 30 people, different projects and so on and so forth, and focused on delivering the best quality to the client and maintaining processes, being diligent about the software that we write. So, keeping, using source code, tools, and then optimizing, and then, commenting, documenting, and all the aspects, and trying to do it very diligently. So on one end, you do it diligently inside. On the other end, you maintain quality and push for as high as possible, and projects being delivered, client being happy. And we decided the company that we're going to do performance evaluations, right? And being the one of the senior leaders at that point, I insisted on doing a 360, because okay, let's do this comprehensively and let's see all the aspects. And having delighted with the delivery and having done led the team, everybody being spot on, the delivery being impeccable and all of that, I was full of self-confidence and said, okay, let's do a 360 and let's wrap this up. And then the shock came. When you do a 360, you cover feedback from the client, you cover feedback from the peers and internal stakeholders, and then you evaluate yourself, but then you collect feedback from the teams. And everything was great. Everybody was happy, client happy, management happy because I was on budget and, revenue was perfect. Delivery was impeccable. Client was super satisfied. And the shock came because the people's feedback. So the teams that I was leading, that I was so sure that I'm doing a great job, the feedback from them came quite low. And I was called to this conversation to, for this evaluation to be shared with me. And there was a sad face, like, what's going on? Like, the project's great, the revenue is great, everything's great, client's happy, I know, because they called me, they congratulated and everything, what's going on, and said, well, all of that's true, but people don't want to work with you. And to me, it was a shock because, I was there helping out everybody, working together, hand in hand, offering help, when we had to do, tight deliveries over the weekend, I would be there buying pizzas, offering food. I mean, I was doing everything. But it turns out that people found it stressful. People found it that I was pressing them too hard. People found it that, it was very, very difficult for them. And that made all the difference because they said, hey, we're all cool, but we don't want to work with them. So long story short, this is why the people component is the key component. So I'm going to go back to sharing the screen again. Hopefully this time it's a lot easier than the last time. You guys can see the screen, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so that was the journey and how it mapped out. So now we're going to cover the key takeaways that I think are important, and then we're gonna go to Q&A and pick up the questions and hopefully have a discussion. First thing, understand the business acumen. So I'm now repeating what I said previously. It's critical, so you have to know it, but it's not hard, because you can learn it. There are materials available, go ahead, study, learn it, and that's it. But you have to understand the business acumen. Here's something that we've been saying a lot in H-Tech, where I work currently, and it's, I think, crucially important. And what is behind this statement? Delight, don't just deliver. So this is when you own what you do. This is not just you're doing your work and you're doing it just enough to satisfy the requirements out there, or you listen to the client and you recognize the need. You've done it a million times before and you just provide the solution and that's it. This is going above and beyond. This is going one step forward. This is, adding value. So it's crucially important to delight, don't just deliver, because everybody else is delivering. Deep dive into the technology and domain. So you have to understand what's under the hood. You have to understand how things work. And this is why I said at the beginning, the engineering background helped me being an engineering manager and doing engineering management. But I said it's not essential. You can be a person that doesn't have an engineering background and still do this work, but you have to do a deep dive into the technology, understand it really, and the domain that you're going to be working in, because otherwise it doesn't work. The fourth key takeaway is people are not to be managed. So again, emphasis on leadership, what it's all about, and empowerment, and giving people clarity in the messages you send, giving people support in the work that they do. Because remember, leadership role is a servant role. So you're there for the team you lead, okay? So if you can help them, great. If not, get out of their way. So, but what you don't do is you don't manage people. And the last one is you have to focus on the essence, but use the form. And I've said it a million times that the essence is important, and there's a misconception that the form is not. It's not to a certain level, but if you really want to, excel in what you do, after certain time, you need to use the form to be able to scale your skills, scale yourself as a professional, scale the projects or the organization that you're leading. So focus on the essence, but use the form. Okay, that's all. Let's go to Q&A.
Okay, so we're going, do you want to stop sharing the screen maybe?
Yeah, I know how to do it now.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'll read. You can also see in, the questions in the Q&A section. So the first one is, what should future leaders look in themselves to recognize and to be sure if this is the next step in their career?
Ooh, did you really have to ask the toughest one? Yeah, okay, so going back to how it all started. So most of the people that I know that are in engineering management have started as engineers, and this is something that you're probably used to and you're comfortable with, and you're going forward and you're developing and you're growing, and all that is great. And at a certain point, there's going to be a turning point. And I wish I had a universal answer, like silver bullet or one size fits all solution, but there's not. So this is very personal thing, I didn't, for example, I can tell you my example. I didn't have a revelation one day that I want to, do business and management and, lead teams. I never did. I actually even hated the spotlight and had to ask for a lot of help to do this that I'm doing right now. So to do presentations and to do, a couple of times public speaking and all of that. So it wasn't natural. So that's why I said it's hard and it's very personal. And it's very on a case by case or individual basis. So at a certain point, you're going to start doing it. You're going to come to a point where you want to mentor, other people, and there's going to be an opportunity out there. There always is, and you're either going to decide to take it or you're not. And what I've learned is that there's no wrong decision. Everything comes to you at the right time. So I know this sounds like a philosophical thing, but I've been in this industry for over 25 years, and I can firmly say that, things come to you at the right time. So there will be opportunities, and it's going to be on you to decide whether or not to take them. And, if you're an engineer, you cannot do, a deep thinking session and realize, oh, I'm going to be an engineering manager. There's no such thing. So just, when you're faced with the challenges and with decisions, you make the decision that you think is best for you at the moment. And then one step will lead to the next, and you either end up as an engineer manager or you won't. But there's no recipe for it, So I hope I answered the question.
Oh, I was muted. So the next question is if you have any book recommendations.
Oh, there are a lot of it, and but they cover different segments, and I've recommended some of the books to some of my colleagues and friends. For an example, and this is one example I always use. There was this company from Chicago. It was called 37 Signals, and this they developed this product that was called Basecamp, and I'm sure most of you have heard about it. Basecamp was a project management software, but then after it became very popular and they developed other products, and then at a certain point they rebranded the whole company. So now the company is called base camp. But what they did was they wrote all the stories of their growth. So there were a couple of books that came out of that, and there are two people that led the company at the time. Jason Fried is one of them, and the other one is David, and I can't remember his last name. He's a Danish guy. But the first book was called Rework. So that's one recommendation that kind of challenged the standard way of product management and product delivery and product creation. And I would recommend that one. Then their next book was called Remote. And it's important to note that they published this book long before COVID and long before remote became the new normal. So they were talking about all these principles 10 years ago, you know, so Remote, also great book. And there are a lot of, I mean, I cannot think of it from the top of my mind now. There are a couple of books on the growth mindset. So that's also important because I know I'm hoping most of the people in the audience are in the younger generations, and I know that the educational system did change a little bit, not too much, sadly, but you know, the way it was set up in when I was studying is there were a lot of fixed things, you know, and it kind of fueled creating fixed mindset with a lot of people, and this is something that is always you know, stopping us from growing. So you know, if you can just search on Amazon growth mindset, there are a couple of books with that phrase in the world. Just pick any, see the number of readers. I mean, go ahead. And on the business acumen, there's, I didn't mention it in the components, but it's also important. At a certain point, you're going to do negotiations, and this one was recommended to me by one of my colleagues. David, thank you for this. It's called Never Split the Difference, one of the greatest books on negotiation, and you know, I wholeheartedly recommend it.
Okay, thank you so much for the recommendations. On the next question, can you compare engineering manager role in outsourcing company to EM in a product company?
Yeah, well, let's not compare the roles, because truth being told, I was part of a product company a long time ago, and at that point, the roles and the you know, engineering management didn't exist as a concept. It was differently called. There were a lot of product managers and product owners and all of that. But I want to do the comparison between a product company and an outsourcing company. Although I will rephrase this a little bit, let's call it a services company. So, because not all services companies are outsourcing, but I think the key comparison is between a product company and a services company. So in a product company, and I've been using this as a pitch a lot of times when trying to attract great engineers to join HTech as I'm working here now. The product company has a pretty straightforward path, you know, and it goes, and I'm oversimplifying now to make a point. It goes a little bit something like you have this great idea that's going for a product that's going to solve some problem in the world and make people's lives better, and you develop it, and then you know, you do the POCs and MVPs and so on and so forth, and then you send it to the market. And if enough people say yes and buy it, you're successful. If they don't, then you're not. Then you know, switch to a different product. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of a concept. With the services companies, it's different. So with the services companies, you have to identify what's the value that you bring to the market. So what are the services that you offer to the customers? But then also you have to select which companies or clients or you want to work with or you want to work for. And preferably, those will be the clients that will, you know, benefit the most from the services you're offering. So over there are two ways to do it. You either focus on the core business of the clients, which is the reason why they exist in this world, and this is where you know, you want to go, or you want to focus on the commodity business of the clients, and this is everything around the core. And what most of the you know, services companies, which are at the same time outsourcing only companies, focus on the commodity first because it's a low-hanging fruit. And there are quite a few engineering companies that are also services companies that focus on the core business of the client. So to zoom out and compare the EM or the leader's role in both companies, the challenges in the services company, in the business acumen, are what I just explained. The challenges of the business acumen in the product companies are somewhat different, okay? But everything else, the engineering and the people, equally important. So they exist in both. The rules of the business are different, and the value proposition is different, and the focus is different, but the people part and the engineering part you still got to do. So the processes and the way of working will be different, but then the most important things and the key takeaways I mentioned, those rule in both equally.
Okay. It seems you are not a fan of university education in the past. What about now?
I apologize if I left that impression. Quite on the contrary, I'm a fan of university education. What I'm not a fan of, or wasn't a fan of, was the way the university education was structured at the time when I was there. And there's this pitfall of avoiding perseverance. And this is something I'm telling a lot these days to my daughter, especially because she's in high school, and I want to prepare her for the next big thing when she finishes high school and goes to university and embraces life and so on. And that is, you know, there are going to be challenges, and there are going to be things you don't like, and there are going to be, you know, things you don't see fit. And you need to be the one to decide whether or not you take up on the challenge and whether or not you don't. So the way I always wanted to do computer engineering, I know software engineering, computer science. And at that point, the university that I joined was the Electrotechnical University, and it was mostly focused on electrotechnics, right? It was all around that. At that time, I couldn't acquire knowledge that I wanted. There was only one subject there. We used to do the exam for programming languages I was doing on a piece of paper, you know, C, C++, the exam was on a piece of paper. So it was nonsense, you know? And I said, okay, I'm not gonna do this. So, but truth being told, later on, and this is when I was a lot older and I was married and I had my daughter and she was 3 years old, I went back to the university and I graduated. So it took 3 years because they recognized, or they recognized is a bad term, they accepted all my exams that I have passed. So, but I studied every day between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. And every weekend I was going out of home to study. So I went back to the university and finished it. But this is only to learn my lesson that, you know, perseverance is important if you love what you do. But then on the other hand, at that time, there were universities with curricula that's related to computer science and software engineering. So it was different. So I did it on my terms, but I'm not against it. So yeah, next.
How to keep high customer and internal stakeholders satisfaction and shield people from stress at the same time, basically balancing between business and the people.
There are two, and I'm oversimplifying this now, and there was a joke related to it, but I don't know how it sounds in English, and because I can't see the audience, let's keep it in English. But there are two types of managers, and I'm oversimplifying to make a point. there are sponge type managers, and there are proxy type managers. And again, there's no one size fits all approach to how do you protect your team from the stress, while at the same time, delivering the product and delivering the messages to the clients. It comes through the years, so it comes through the experience and through many situations that you embark on. Remember the story that I told you when people didn't want to work with me. So at that point, I was in the proxy manager phase. And obviously all the stress I was getting from the clients and from the internal stakeholders, I was passing on to the people. I was imposing tight deadlines. I was, pushing. That's not the way to do it, obviously. And I've learned it the hard way. The way to do it is that you have to suck it all in. So you collect all the stress, requirements, wishes, satisfaction, dissatisfaction, everything. And then you repackage it and you talk to the team in a way that you motivate them. So you have to find out what they're all about. You have to know your team. You have to have regular one-on-ones with the people so that you can really know on what's important to them, how they communicate, how you reach out to them, and how do you empower them to do that. So, you have to do all of that so that when the requirement comes, or when the, stress comes, that you need to suck it all in, and then, don't pass it on as is to the people. So again, there's no magic bullet, and it takes time. And if Dushko asked this question, if you're from the younger generation colleagues, I would strongly advise that you find a mentor to help you out on how to detect these situations, and how to pick up the skills to don't pass on the stress to the team, But if it was a rhetorical question, this is it. There's no silver bullet solution. You have to know your people. You have to regularly talk to them and understand what's the best approach so that you can still engage them and influence their engagement, but without the stress. This is why I said you don't manage people, but you need to empower them, help them, support them, and so on and so forth. Okay.
How to decide whether it is the right time to start getting into managerial role?
This is also similar to the first question. So it's how to decide. It's not something you decide up front, I would say. And let me reflect on this differently. And because I've seen many examples where at a certain point, people hear stories about managers' salaries, about managers' bonuses that they get, and so on and so forth. And then say, oh, well then, if that's the truth, I want to be a manager. It's really important to make the decisions for the right reasons. Okay, so again, opportunities are going to rise. So if you're an engineer or a developer, you're going to pick up skills, you're going to develop them, you're going to grow, you're going to increase your seniority. At a certain point, younger colleagues are going to come in and you're going to be, asked a lot of questions, and you're going to mentor them. If you feel you're being distracted and you're being bugged by these people, then, you're going to decide, hey, I don't want to mentor you. You're, annoying me. You're, climbing on my head. Like, please don't, you're asking too many questions. Then probably you'll feel, okay, this is not something I want to do. I'm comfortable with the, code, with my development environment. This is what I want to do. But if you find helping people, if you find mentoring, and this is legit, it's not a bad thing, it's genuine. People should do what they genuinely want and feel like the best thing, feel like it's the best thing for them, So, but if it's okay for you to help them out, and then if you mentor them, and then if you take on an opportunity to be the team lead, to have some kind of a leadership role, and then you take on that, and then you start talking to them regularly, for the technology, for the business, for the engineering, but for private topics as well, And if you're fine with this, okay, that's a good sign that you are okay with leading people. And then probably we're going to think of, okay, there are different kinds of people, and you'll have different, a variety of characters, you know, in your team. And with some of them, the communication will be easier. With some of them, it will be hard. With some of them, at a certain point, it will be easier, and then it will be hard. So there are a lot of, you know, not exact things when it comes to people. And then you'll see if you're comfortable doing this, you'll continue doing it. If you're not, it's okay to switch back. So, you know, there's no single thing that it's like, aha, ta-da, now I'm going to do this. It's not. So just take it one step at a time. And I was an engineer at a certain point in my life, and I loved doing it. At a certain point, I started leading people, and I loved doing it as well. I was thinking I was doing it right. It turned out I was doing it wrong, but I didn't go back to not doing it. You know, I felt strongly that I want to do this. So I learned how to do it. So it's, you know, it's really individual. And again, there's no big bang kind of thing that you're going to make the decision. You should go one step at a time.
Question regarding journey part. What did you change in your work or behavior when you found out the people's feedback on you?
I changed a lot of things. First, I started listening more. Because when you think you know everything, and when you make decisions based on what you decisions related to the people, and how you approach them, and how you delegate the tasks, and how you try to motivate them, when you operate under the assumption that you know it all, that's when you screw up. So the first thing that I did was I started to listen more. And then I started to read a lot. So there are a lot of books out there that coach you on how to lead teams. And one thing about books and about information, I mean, on the internet and courses, you're going to be exposed to a lot of information, and this is quite different from when I was starting. And right now, there's a lot of information, and sometimes it's going to feel overwhelming. Don't be afraid to rely on your common sense. You know, if something makes sense, go ahead and do it. If something doesn't make sense, then don't do it. You know, and you know, work will prove you right or wrong, and then it's okay. But this is part of the growth mindset. You know, not saying I know everything, and this is how we do it, but being open to suggestions and being open to continuously learning. So again, to sum it up again directly, first thing I did, started listening more, then I started reading, and the third thing, I started, you know, being open to not being right all the time, because being a leader doesn't mean you have to know everything, you know, or be the best developer or the best engineer. Definitely not. So yeah.
So there is one more question about regarding books. Can you recommend some book about the business part? But I believe that you have mentioned it before.
I mentioned the negotiations part, and you know, just I don't have a specific. I mean, okay, here's one book that I would love to recommend, but I didn't. It's the economics book, for example, right? So I haven't finished reading it yet, but it's on my desk. You know, it's, there are a lot of books on the business acumen. So I apologize for not being able to name 10 or 5, but you know, what I did was I bought a subscription on Amazon, and went there, searched it, and see the reviews, and just pick one and learn. You know, there's never a drawback if you want to read more books. So yeah.
Next question is, what's the best way to encourage people and be sure that people will love to work with you in your team?
There are 2 parts of this question. So the first one is important, the other one is not. If you want to encourage people and help them and support them, that's one thing. But you don't do it because you want them to love to work with you. You know, so and it's a good question, really, because it's important to emphasize this. I mentioned that it's key on the reasons you're doing something. The reason is the key. You know, don't do things for the wrong reasons. You know, if you feel you're underpaid, work on improving your skill set and your value and your your delivery, your performance, and then if that's not valued or appreciated, move on, change the company, change the team, do something. But and it's the same with this. You should encourage your people because you genuinely want to help them. If you don't, then it's fine, don't, but don't help them for them to like working with you, because that's the wrong reason to help anybody, just not just the team that you lead. Okay, next question.
Okay, the next one is, how do you deal with problematic people that you cannot fire?
Okay, so all of us have parts of our character that are problematic for somebody at a certain point. And I know this again sounds like a politically correct answer, but believe me, it's not. And I'll tell you why. It's because if you as a leader are faced with a challenge that relates to a conflict between two people, or a series of conflicts that one person is constantly involved in, talk and listen. So approach this person, and talk to them and try to understand what's going on. Because, and again, this may sound as a politically correct answer, but it's something I truly believe in, that people don't want to be problematic. Nobody woke up one morning and said, I'm going to be problematic today. Something happened to these people. So if you're their leader, if you're their team lead, talk to them and try to understand. Well, talk to them, but listen more than you talk, and listen and try to understand, what's behind it. And if you can help, go ahead and help. If you cannot, then be open and communicate about it. Because I like the end of the sentence or the question, like people that you cannot fire. There are no such people, So if you as a manager and as a leader realize that somebody is not a good fit for the team, for the company, for the part of the organization that you're responsible for, it's okay to part ways. So it's completely fine to fire people if this is part of your job, But what is really crucially important is how you do it. You have to be human about it, okay? So if you need to part ways with somebody, that's fine, but be respectful when you do it, be forthcoming and transparent, and just communicate it. And believe me, it's not easy. I've been in such conversations many times in my career where I had to communicate tough messages to people. My palms were sweating, every time. My palms were sweating 20 years ago, and my palms were sweating 3 months ago. So it doesn't change. And, but as long as it doesn't change, that means you're doing the right thing, or you're at the right place. Once it becomes easy, then you should probably be doing something else.
Next one is, do you ever regret switching from a specialist to a leadership position?
No.
Okay. Yeah, advice on people starting or early in their engineering careers.
Advice on people starting, I'm guessing starting off early in their engineering careers, in terms of starting off.
Or in early stage of career, if I understood it right.
Am I understanding this right? If people are starting doing leadership early in their career, right? Or
no, or people who are just starting or are in their early phase of their engineering career position.
Oh, okay, so people that are starting in the engineering position, if this is what you want to do, by all means, just grab it and be hungry and learn a lot, work hard. I mean, I will not tell you anything that you probably haven't heard before, and I know there are a lot of motivational talkers here and there, and there's no point in inventing the wheel all over again. So if this is what you want to do, just work hard. One of the takeaways was deep dive into the technology and domain. So don't just do things, don't just do things, but really focus on doing them right, doing them good, do a deep dive, obsess yourself with the work that you do, and you'll love it.
What do you think? Is it better to mature as an engineer then switch to manager role, or try to chase manager career immediately? And is that even possible?
It is possible, and it is possible, but okay, my path was different. So my path was in the first part of the question. So I did first mature as an engineer and then kind of transited to a manager role. But on the other hand, there are professional managers that have been trained to do so. And a key thing when you're early in your management career is to have a mentor. And this is something I would like to recommend to everybody that's deciding to take on a leadership role or management role. Find a good mentor. Find somebody that's and read a lot on what leadership is all about, because being a manager is all about the processes. And I mentioned that in the presentation. It's all about we're talking engineering management, right? So it's all about how you manage the processes and the steps and documenting things and taking notes and doing moms and doing key takeaways and all of those processes. So find a mentor and master your skill. That's but it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible, and that's the thing. So.
Okay, so that will be all for the questions from the Q&A, but I saw one at the chat that says, do you think the MBA degree would be beneficial for transition to your role compared to the natural transition from an engineer?
It's always beneficial. And what I will recommend is that there are a lot of MBA programs out there available. Make sure to go and ask for the curricula, ask for the program, get familiar with the content, and then compare those, and then make an informed decision. But I would definitely encourage, it will help, because the natural transition encompasses a lot of learning. And if you're a person that likes to learn by themselves, then that's a road you should take, and it's fine. On the other hand, if you're a person that is, for whom it's easier to pick up on a class, then find a good MBA program and by all means enroll in it. So both are doable. Now it's easy.
Okay, so we're done with questions, I believe. Okay, so we just got one.
Does proceeding with higher leadership role means go apart from technology, hands-on experience, which I have as a team lead and which is essential skill? Yes, it does. Now, I'm not gonna comment on hobbies, because I have a very good dear friend of mine and a colleague who's also on a higher leadership position. So at work, you get distant from doing hands-on technology work, because it's just that you have certain bandwidth, and there are a lot of responsibilities that tackle the business. And as you progress in your engineering management career, that component will be larger and larger and larger. The people component will always be there, because that's the most important one. But the technology component will be, in a more zoomed out manner. So you will rarely have the time to do hands-on. But what this colleague of mine is doing is that because he loves doing hands-on work. He has a hobby, so he has a place in his house where he has, everything related to technology, and he's still doing it. So we can do it as a hobby, but as a professional, I know I've loved to do it. I read a lot about it. Here's the other book here, but hands-on work, yeah, it's hard.
Okay, I believe that we are done now, really. So, Marco, thank you so much for today's session. We had some technical issues in the beginning, but everything was, going smoothly towards the end. So, throughout the whole webinar. And I believe that everyone found it really useful as much as I did, and inspiring as well. And thank you once again for accepting our invitation.
Thank you again for the opportunity to talk. Thank you everybody for attending, although I cannot see right now all of the people, but thank you so much for the questions. And yeah, have a great night.
And for the end, I would love to invite everyone to register on their local Joberty platform and explore it. If you have any question, let us know. We are here for you. And I just wanted to invite you to follow us on social media platforms and stay up to date with our channels and new events. Wish everyone a good evening, a great evening, and see you next month on the next webinar.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.